Ladies and gentlemen, Binnall of America!
And now, ladies and gentlemen, your host, Tim Binnall.
No commercials, no subscriptions, no network, no rules. And at the end of the day, my friends, no comparison. Welcome to another edition of BOA The Revival. Very excited about this week's edition of the program. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Our guest is J.W. Ocker. He is kind of a New England guy. He's lived in New Hampshire for the last 10 years. He's written about a ton of stuff around here, but he's written just about a ton of stuff, period. And he's kind of like one of my favorite type of guests because, as we'll get into here on the program, he's written books on a whole bunch of different sort of genres. He's done cursed objects. He's done cryptids. He's done cults. We're going to get into all that stuff. So he has a wide berth of stuff that he has written about. And he also has a wildly popular website, Odd Things I've Seen, or Otis, which is sort of a travel log of all the various sort of oddities of nature, history, art, and culture that he's visited over the years. Many spots that I've checked out as well, because like I said, he's in New Hampshire, so we're kind of fellow New Englanders. To give him a little bit more of a fleshed out bio, he's also the Edgar Award-winning author of Poeland, The Haunted Haunts of Edgar Allan Poe, A Season with the Witch, and Death and Douglas. Let me redo that. And Death and Douglas. His work has appeared in The Guardian, The Boston Globe, CNN, The Atlantic, and other places people stick writing. So there you go. He's got a very rich and varied resume. And we were in the same building once last year at Lauren Coleman's International Cryptozoology Symposium. But it was so wild, no pun intended. It was just a frenzy of activity that JW and I didn't get the chance to cross paths at all. And then as I was sort of looking at guests to have on this summer, I was like, oh, JW Ocker. I never got a chance to talk to him at the ICM. So let's get him on Binnall of America and really do a deep dive. So with all that said, JW Ocker, welcome to Binnall of America. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. I'm sure this is going to be a blast. I'm going to have a good time tonight.
I think we'll have a lot of fun. So we always start out with the first-time guest, the bio, the background. You know, who is J.W. Ocker, and how'd you get mixed up in all this?
It's a good question. And if my microphone gets annoying, let me know. So I started out basically a travel writer is kind of where I was, but it was a travel writer of the strange. I'm from Maryland. I grew up in Maryland, and I was like post my college years, my master's years, bored to tears, lonely, depressed, all these things. And wanted to be a writer, but had nothing to write about, right? I was one of those guys, just super boring. And I suddenly realized, like, if I had nothing to write about, if I was this boring dude, nothing to write about myself, how do I find something to write about? So then I started going to odd things that I found that were actually interesting, and then writing my own experiences with them. It wasn't just, again, writing folklore in a book. You know, you mentioned those earlier. That's a whole genre. Mine was, I have to go see it myself. I have to write about my impressions with it, and it has to be strange. And that's because I get really bored with life a lot. So it had to stick out in some way from the everyday static of existence. So I started writing a blog. Otis, you mentioned that. That's my first ever kind of foray into like the writing sphere, into the world.
Yeah.
And it caught on enough that I started getting book deals. And I moved to New England right before my first book, which was about New England, and then just kind of haven't looked back. So I've written about everything that's kind of interested me over the years. And then at some point, I started writing novels as well for children and adults, just because I also wanted to be a novelist. But really, my bread and butter, the thing that I find the most value in, the thing I'm probably most known for, is my first person nonfiction. So I always joke, you know, the word I use the most in books is the word I. Just the letter I, because I am fully in those books. Even though they're about other things, I am the one. I'm a character in my own books every single time. So that's kind of it. I'm just a writer with nothing to do but a predilection for the strange, the macabre, and that somehow turned into a lot of adventures, a lot of really cool adventures that are honestly nowadays why I do it. Like the books are great. I love having the books. They're things I will pass on to my kids, but like actually working on those books, so much fun. Like I've got friends out of those books. I've got adventures out of those books. I got experiences with my family out of those books. And that's kind of the valuable part to me is these books are opportunities for me to just do cool stuff other than sitting behind a computer and pressing a few keys, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're experiential, which is great.
Yeah, exactly.
Now this show's coming out in September or late. Yeah, September. So this episode's coming out in September. Now you'll have just released a new book. So let's plug that right at the start. That's Welcome to the Ghost Show, which is coming out late.
This is a novel, technically for children. It's a horror novel for kids. It's kind of one of my genre for kids is just I write horror novels. And Welcome to the Ghost Show will be out August 26th. And it is my biggest. So I had this. Tell me if this is uninteresting or just cut it out. I kind of have this philosophy when it comes to writing for children that children have this. They have an unending ability to have wonder, to feel wonder, right? And horror is a part of wonder. It's just another kind of shade of wonder. And they will take anything. They will take anything and just be ecstatic about it. So they're a great audience to try new things with. So again, you know, you could feed them horror novels about werewolves and about, you know, witches and stuff like that, and it'll be fine. They'll love those. But as an author, you get to maybe make up your own monsters, maybe go in different ways, maybe redefine creatures. Yeah. Whereas with adults, because I'm a horror reader as well, and I'm a jaded, you know, whatever, horror reader, if my favorite author comes out with their 100th haunted house book, I'm all in. I'll read it because it's comforting to me. I love that kind of stuff. And because I'm not looking for anything new because I'm old and cynical. Yeah. Kids, though, they'll take anything. So you have this opportunity to like really do new things. I try to do that with my books. In the Ghost Show, I've seen so many horror movies and read so many books that the ghost tropes kind of bother me these days because they're just done over and over and over and over again. And so I try to figure out a way to like reinvent ghosts in a way that was terrifying, but also just a way that I thought maybe hadn't been done before. So that's the entire thing. In Pressy, the story is this town with a big, you know, tragedy in their past, an explosion that killed like a third of the town, wakes up one day to find a 500-foot tall black skull on a building-sized black skull in the outskirts of town. And inside that skull is a man named Everett, what they think is a man, Everett Nocturama Mancer, who promises to show them real ghosts. This entire town, who every single family has had a tragedy almost. They all have dead people in their past, dead loved ones. And that's kind of the setup. I tried to swing as big as I could, do something I hadn't heard of before. And that's kind of what it is. It's me taking advantage of kids, basically, is what my books are. It sounds challenging to write horror for kids because it's like, is there like a fine line you kind of have to toe to like not make it too scary, or do they want it more scary, or like really don't?
What's the situation there?
You have to work harder to scare kids because again, you know, Boo is kind of cool to them. You chase a kid around, he wants to be chased. They want to be scared. So adults are harder because we've seen it all, done it all. We've seen the worst movies. We've seen gross stuff. Yeah. Our entire life is just like, you know, contaminating our brains, and kids don't. So you just have to be honest with them. You know, don't pull punches. Don't try to make it. And I see this a lot with like children's literature in the horror realm, where basically the story is just an adult story that's been boiled down to like very easy to digest parts of it. And you don't need to do that. Like you don't have to be graphic at all, but you can use your imagination in ways that almost makes it worse, in my opinion, right? Because kids can just connect the dots and figure out new things. So I don't approach my my children's novels any differently than my adult novels, other than, you know, I have opportunity for more adult situations in adult novels because it's just relevant to who we are. Right. Whereas in kids, what's relevant to them is a little bit different as far as like lifestyle and context and where they live and what they do, what they're allowed to do.
School and shit. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Otherwise, the storytelling, how to scare them, that's kind of I follow kind of the same mechanism and same thought process.
Gotcha. All right. Interesting. And that's Welcome to the Ghost Show. And that just came out recently. So folks can check that out. Now, it's interesting. So I was doing my research here for the show, and I was like, I think that this whole conversation tonight is a bit of kismet, because as I was on the on oddthingsiveseen.com. That's the website for folks to check out. So it's on there, and you have like a little widget that has the things for the Facebook page. Mm-hmm. And your wife you hadn't posted the picture of your wife with the book yet. So this was like earlier today when I was doing the research. Since it's changed, but the first thing,
my girlfriend, by the way, I don't want to give. I don't want you giving her ideas yet.
Yeah, I don't want to get you in trouble there. Yeah. Okay. The thing that was in the widget was the paper house in Gloucester, which I had the pleasure of visiting during the pandemic when no one was around. So it was a lot easier to visit some of these places. And I've never talked about this on the show. So I guess tell people a little bit about this amazing place, the paper house, because I love it.
It's amazing. So it's in Rockport, in a place called Pigeon Cove, which is just a piece of Rockport. And it is in a neighborhood. It's actually owned, I think, by the house next door to it, but it has its own lot, its own place. It's a one-story house, almost completely made of newspapers. That includes walls, ceiling, and almost all the furniture is either made of newspapers or it's covered in newspapers. And when I say newspapers, so the walls are like an inch thick with newspapers. It's like 215 layers of newspaper print to make these walls. And then the furniture is made up of a bunch of dowels that are about quarter of an inch to half an inch thick, tightly rolled. You can still see the newspaper print on them. And then they're like varnished and glued. So they have this brownish, like kind of antique tint to it. And then they're just covering or built. They're almost like Lincoln logs at that point. And they just build the furniture from scratch. Or if it's like in the case of the piano there, they just covered a real piano with these things. And it's been around for 100 years. The guys that built it, he was an engineer. He made like those machines that made paper clips. So this is his job. His name was Ellis. I can't remember his last name. Starts with an S, but it's out there. He just wanted to build a summer house and just was experimenting with newspapers. He started in 1922. I think it took him about 20 years to do the whole house and all the furniture. And the outside of the house, even though it's a wooden frame, wooden floor, that's all wood. That's all like real house materials. But then the newspapers are like layered in almost scales or like little squares, and again, varnished to an antique brown. And that paper was its outside wall for like 70, 80 years until quite recently they actually had to put clapboard around the exposed newspaper on the outside because they got tired of revarnishing it. And also I think all the critters were like stealing paper for nests and stuff out of there. So inside though, you still see all the paper walls, you still see all the furniture, but outside they definitely have clapboarded it a bit to keep it preserved. But again, even so, they've only done that in the past, I think 10, 15 years. So it withstood 80 years of weather with just thick paper for walls. So it's an amazing place. And again, it's an honor system. There's no like ticket there. I think they want you to donate $1, like a mere $1. And there's
right.
There's like a Venmo and there's like a little mailbox if you want to do it that way. And normally I've been there twice and there has never been anybody there while I'm there. And that was not pandemic times even. There was nobody there.
Right.
You just walk in. It almost feels like trespassing. You just walk in this yard into the store. And like suddenly you're in this amazing 100-year-old accomplishment. This very unique thing. And, more people should go. But again, if more people goes, then you might not have as private of experience as we had.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you nailed it perfectly. It's like really weird. And it's interesting that you had the same experience I did, even though it was like different times. Because there was no one there. It's like a hidden gem. Yeah. It's like on some some side residential street. And you're kind of like we were just kind of driving down, like, I think that's it there. And then you get out and you like walk up and then you go in. It's like, holy shit. And there's no one there to like welcome you or tell you any rules. It's like, it's very much an honor system. And it is remarkable that it's managed to last that long. Just generally how shitty people are, you know what I mean? It's like, it's great that no one's been a dick and fucked it all up.
And also just like materials wise, we have regular houses that don't last 100 years. Like, whatever, siding and aluminum, they don't last 100 years. But I love how, like you said, it's tucked away, right? 1 million people go to Rockport. 1 million. It's like one of the most famous destinations on the North Shore, right? You're going to Bear Skin Neck or whatever that is, that little like quaint little fishing part is, where you're going to all the shops. Like, I went there as well that last time I went up to the paper house, and it was crowded. People everywhere shopping, enjoying the sun, the beach. I'm like, but I thought I've learned about definitely New England, also the rest of the country and the world, is that there's weird stuff all around us. We just don't know about it. You can grow up your entire life in Rockport, and not know that thing was there, right? And I've done that myself. I've lived in New Hampshire for 15, 16 years. And I'm still finding out new things about New Hampshire. And again, it's my job to know odd things about New Hampshire. And I'm still learning new things like on a weekly or monthly basis. It's astonishing how much oddity is just out there. If you just jump in your car and go, it doesn't even take much to get there.
Absolutely. Whereabouts in New Hampshire are you?
Nashua, so southern New Hampshire.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. I get up to Salem quite a bit and Exeter a lot too. So those are my two main stomping grounds.
That's a great area. I mean, Exeter is UFO town, I go there, try to get there to the UFO festival every year.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. And the reason why I said this conversation, there's some kismet involved, because not only so I clicked over to see the paper house because I'm like, oh, the paper house, dude. Who else knows about the paper house? J.W. Walker's been to the paper house. I've been to the paper house. This is like a hidden gem. I scroll down to the next thing and I damn near fell out of my chair because there's you and your family at the Ticonderoga Star Trek set place, which is like, I feel like anyone who I've also, of course, been there. So anyone else who has been there, I feel like it's like this secret club where it's like, oh, you've sat in the captain chair, baby. That is a wild, wild place.
That's another place, and I could name tons of them that it boggles my mind, A, that it exists, or B, that you can go so long without knowing about it. I've been a Star Trek fan my whole life. I only really found out about that museum. Well, I heard about it a long time ago, like maybe 10 years ago, but I thought it was kind of one room in somebody's private house that some hobbyist built. And I think it might have been at the time. I had no idea that it had blossomed over the years into all the sets, recreations of all the sets from the USS Enterprise in the original series, with full tour guides and a gift shop and conventions. Like William Shatner was just there. I think the tour guide said Shatner's been there 13 times,
Yeah.
And it is, even, I took my 3 daughters. My oldest daughter is a big Star Trek fan. She's going through that phase. She's experienced it all for the first time. But even if you're not a Star Trek fan, it is mind-blowing, the amount of detail and recreation, and you feel like you're on a set. And it's just, again, in Ticonderoga, which, again, a beautiful town that very few people go to, right? But it has this, like, world-class, amazing thing that nobody else has. That's the other thing, right? I guarantee you very few places in the world have a paper house. Very few places, no other place in the world probably has Star Trek sets except for Paramount, whatever throwback filming, right? Yeah. So it's it's only 3.5 hours from my house, right? So a lot of people balk at driving 3.5 hours, and I'm like, no, it's so worth it. Like, what else are you going to do with your Saturday? You're going to mow the lawn, you're going to binge some Netflix, you're going to do some grocery shopping, you're going to do some chores. No, go drive 3 hours, have an experience, drive 3 hours back. It's more doable than you think. And once you do it, you kind of like get addicted to that. How far can I go in a day, in a weekend? What can I see? How can I turn this into a multi-stop trip, which we did. That was that. So in one day, it was like a 12-hour day. Me and my 3 girls did the Ticonderoga Star Trek Museum. We did the Whitehall, New York, with all the Bigfoot statues.
Oh, yes. I love Whitehall.
I'm putting together a video on that right now. I've been there a few times, but my 2 of my girls had never been. And it was like right there. It was like 20 minutes away from Ticonderoga. And then we went to a place I had never been called Ghost Hollow in Vermont, which is like a road in the middle of nowhere, middle of farmland that has like a ghost story behind it. And they named it Ghost Hollow after the story. And instead of like a green, civic road sign, it's a big boulder with the words Ghost Hollow inscribed in it, right? So I did all those in one day.
That's awesome.
12 hours, went back. Great Saturday. We were back by 7. It was fine.
That's awesome. Yeah.
We had all day Sunday to like binge Netflix and do chores and all those and mow the grass, all that stuff.
That's great. Yeah, the Star Trek, it is, the museum in Ticonderoga is like, it's hard to explain.
Yeah.
I've everybody I know who's in the paranormal, who's a Star Trek fan, I've like pitched it to. Aaron Goulias, Jason Offutt, friends of mine, authors, podcasters. I'm like, I'm not even a big Star Trek fan, but I was like, I have to see this.
It's shocking how good it is.
Yeah. And all due respect, I loved Ticonderoga, but it was like very much kind of set back in time in a way.
Yeah,
it was like
small town.
Yeah, it was like a small town that maybe it's trying to turn things around, but it's like it is like, I noticed I stayed there for a couple of days because I went up to the Lake George Champ Festival.
George is awesome. I love Lake George.
Yes, went up there like that same weekend. So we stayed in Ticonderoga because of the Star Trek thing. I'm like, that's one of my things I want to do. So, but it was like Ticonderoga, God bless it. It was that stereotypical town where like the Walmart came in and like kind of crushed everything else. See, that's the impression I got because like we went to the Walmart and it was like massive and all, and the main street was like there was nothing going on. There was one bar across the street from the Star Trek Museum, and if you look on the Google reviews, they're like Bill Shatner comes in and serves drinks when he comes into town. So it's like, oh shit, that must be awesome.
That's generally the story of a lot of the towns I go to that have weird stuff, right? Because what happens is, you know, the industry dies, goes overseas. Like you said, the big box stores come in and run out all the small businesses, and all they have left is that one bit of weirdness 50 years ago, the Bigfoot sightings. Then they kind of doubled down on that. So Whitehall's kind of the same way, probably worse off, definitely worse off than Ticonderoga. So they immediately just put Bigfoot statues everywhere and said, we are now Bigfoot Festival. We have one of those legends and lore signs about we made it a protected species in our town, right?
Yeah, they're all
because again, that's what's like that same thing with Salem and their witches and Sleepy Hollow and their Headless Horsemen. That's kind of the last bastion of towns, which to me is sad, right? Because it's like a last bastion, but it should also be a first bastion. If you're that unique, if your town is that unique, run with that, because otherwise you're not unique. I always joke, like every single town, like they always tout most towns get their identity from sports. They just do, right? You wear the closest cities to your color, and if you're in the Midwest, the local colleges, right? So if I see a guy in a Patriots hat, I'm like, okay, Boston area, somewhere in New England. That's kind of the theme of the city. And if you're a smaller town, you're not close to a sports team. Your next bet is your geography. You're pushing your farmlands, your coastline, your hills, your mountains, whatever you have.
Yeah.
There's a million towns with that. And then if you don't have that, you're touting your history, which is guaranteed to be the same as every other town's history. It's colonials, westward expansion, a couple of world wars, you send some kids off, you have your little statue in the middle of town. But nobody's going to come to see that because every town has that. But if you have a Star Trek recreation in your town, if you have a Bigfoot sighting that you're making statues out of, nobody else has that. I have contributed to the economies of so many small towns just because they had something that nobody else had, and I wanted to go see it. And that's kind of like a rule of marketing, I guess, is be different and then push that difference. And that's kind of why I end up in those towns, because again, Mothman and Point Pleasant, right? Nobody would ever go to Point Pleasant on accident or on purpose. Except for now, the Mothman makes it one of the most popular destinations in the paranormal world, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's really great over the years, having seen this, to see these towns are starting to really embrace this. We're seeing it now kind of with Loveland and the Frog Festival. Mm-hmm. West Virginia, they just did a Veggie Man Festival. West Virginia's going nuts on creatures and cryptids. God bless.
So they have like 10 festivals all dedicated to a different monster. It's
wild.
Amazing.
Yeah. So it's been great to see that embrace these local cultures and out of necessity and sort of out of pride, that they're like, maybe back before they're like, yeah, we don't want to really be the Frogman town. I saw that with Exeter over the years, because I was involved the first couple of years with the Exeter Festival, and they were like, yeah, the town's not really too thrilled that we're doing this. And and I kind of dipped out for a few years and came back as a voyeur, as a guy, just to check it out. And now it's like everybody in town is, wearing an antenna and offer. The restaurants have the blue saucer special of the weekend, and everybody is getting in on the UFO craze in Exeter every year now. And it's like, wow, have times changed, man? Because Exeter's a little bit posh, and they were kind of like, yeah, we don't want to be the flying saucer town. Now they're like, well, when you're bringing in tens of thousands of people, sure, why not? We're in.
Yeah, my gauge on that. So when I first moved to New Hampshire, I'm just like excited, young. I'm finally New England. I love New England. I want to be in New England. So I chose New Hampshire just because of for practical reasons, because of where the jobs were, but also it was like a blank slate to me. Like every other New England state had baggage, right? Vermont has its baggage, maniacs, you have mass holes, and then Connecticut is just New York, right? Right. New Hampshire to me was some blank slate with some vague political connection that I didn't understand. And I moved there, and I immediately emailed the editor of New Hampshire Magazine. I'm like, hey, I'm a writer. I'm not, before I was published, I was like, I want to write about cool shit in New Hampshire. Can I do that? I'm like, yeah, send us some stuff. So I started writing about, it's a Betty and Barney state, right? We should write about Betty and Barney. We should write about the first ever modern UFO abduction. It's super unique. They're like, and I sent them that write up, and they're like, it's a little bit strange for our audience. Our audience isn't like that. Fast forward 15 or 10 years later, and there's a historical sign touting Betty and Barney's abduction. They asked me to, every year in the anniversary of September, they asked me to do a write-up on it or like do something like, so it's like you said, it's been such a turnaround to accept like this again. And you don't have to believe in UFOs to believe that like this is a unique moment that happened that we should still embrace. You don't have to like think of yourself as a tinfoil hat where it's fine. This something happened. And only in your state and area, embrace it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's really cool. It's been quite a turnaround up there, and it's a great place. So how do you generally find these places you want to check out? Just sort of like from online or things you've seen over the years that you're like, oh, if I get around there, I want to check it out.
It's changed. When I first started, obviously, it was the internet, right? Which was this mule. When I started, I started visiting things in about 2004, 2005.
Right.
And the internet was muling and young and didn't have all, wasn't stuffed with information, right? Didn't have a million people doing TikTok videos. So that's kind of how I started. There were sites like Roadside America, which is a very old school, one of the first sites ever, right? It's super cool. I had all the, weird America books around me trying to figure out sites. And then over time, I started building my own interactive map. I just started adding stuff to it as I heard about it, right? And then over the years, I just kind of attuned myself to pay attention to that stuff, whether it's locals emailing me if they found my site and telling me about their stuff, or it's just me keeping my ears open, like, oh, what? They just installed, a historic sign commemorating the birthplace of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in Dover, New Hampshire, right? Like that, that immediately goes on my map, and then one Saturday, I'll open up my map and just make a route and then take the route, right? So I have about, I think, 4,000 to 5,000 sites in just the U.S. on my map that I've seen probably half of them at this point. They're all color coded and like interactive and have summaries and links. It's very geeky, but that's how I do it now. I just kind of, my filter is pretty much always on. But a lot of times it's news, honestly, because I know the big ones, right? I know the big giant oddities that have been around for decades and are like top tier Atlas Obscura type stuff. Yeah, but it's the more obscure stuff that I'm looking for, right? Because that kind of fills in the blanks. And again, it's either people emailing me, locals emailing me. Every time I give a talk, right? Somebody always comes up to me and asks me, "Hey, have you ever heard of this?" I'm like, "Never." There's almost every single time I've never heard of it. So like they, I add it to my map and think to research it. Although these days, as you know, it's getting easier and easier and easier to find weird stuff because there's a million sites now. There's all these people using it as content, and states are commemorating it. New York and Vermont both have a Legends and Lore program where they have signs. The Manchester Vampire in Vermont has a sign that you can go, just like Abraham Lincoln was here. The Manchester Vampire was here. So like it's just almost like too easy to find weird stuff. But again, it's a never-ending fount. So like I never run out. I still haven't run out after 15 years of doing this all my life, or 15 years of doing this constantly, even within like a tank of gas on my house or stuff I'm finding.
Yeah, and it's always like I did a road trip up to Canada last year, up to Prince Edward Island, so up through New Brunswick.
And, nice one. It's a nice trip.
Special sort of joy as we were kind of making our way through. And I got on the Atlas Obscura site and I'm like, well, what's on this route here? And it was like the world's largest axe. And I'm like, we're literally passing the town where the world's largest axe is. So we have to pull off and see this. I'm like that guy. I know you are too, where it's like, if it's called the world's largest, I want to see it. And it was amazing. It was breathtaking. It was like, wow, this is insane.
Like even the kitschy, cheesy stuff has a value to it. There's like a reason it's there. Somebody, again, it's usually more interesting. The person that made it is this oddball who convinced the town, or there's always a story there. And again, just seeing a giant thing, like you said, is mind-boggling. It's just like, this exists. How does this exist? How did I go my whole life without knowing this existed? That's always my big question: is how did this get past me? This is weird. How this get past me? So people should have been telling me this from like age 4 that a giant axe existed, right? Just the way it is, and they don't.
Well, that was the weird part. Like we stopped at a couple other places along the way, and I'm like, yeah, we just went by through the giant axe. And these are like people who live up there, and they're like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, there's a giant axe like 3 towns down. Yeah, like you don't know about the giant axe. They're like, no, I got to look that up. I'm like, oh, Jesus, this is wild. This is crazy.
People get in ruts. And my big joke is, so I grew up in Maryland, but DC was my city. I was like in the DC metro area. And I didn't go up to the top of the Washington Monument till I was 33 and I was living in New England. That's the first time I went up to the top of the White
Oh,
Giant.
wow. Yeah.
So there's a bit of that, like local blindness, but also
Yes.
people aren't looking for it. People are looking for usually pretty normal things, right? They're looking for, whatever, a festival. They're looking for shopping. They're looking for sporting events. It doesn't cross our mind that I can just jump in my car, go see something that doesn't exist anywhere else, like a giant axe, Eartha, the giant globes up there as well, and see something that will tell people about. On Monday at work, I have something interesting to say because I went and drove an extra 2 hours on my Saturday to have an adventure.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the New England area is great too because there's so much stuff within driving distance. Yeah.
My formula for odd stuff is time plus death. That usually, because most of my oddity is macabre because it's just the oddest thing out there is macabre stuff. And there's so much, but again, lots of time plus lots of death equals lots of cool stuff. And New England's the oldest part of the country, so per square inch, New England can't be beat for the strange and the macabre. It just can't be, and that's one of the reasons I moved up here. Is because I wanted to be in that world of, again, I drive past 3 17th century cemeteries just on my way to, the gym, right? Or just on my way to the grocery store. And they're just tucked away. Back in DC, you don't have those. You don't live in, you live in new houses. You don't live in 100-year-old houses. Like my first house I bought in New Hampshire was 1890 was when it was built. And it wasn't a nice historic mansion. It was a schlubby little house, but they had so many of them. A schlub like me could buy a 19th century house. So it's just a different place up here. It's just totally different.
Yeah, it's really nice and really, accessible to a lot of strange stuff. Like you're saying, like you can do 3 hours. You drive about 3 hours, you're up in Vermont and doing the Whitehall thing. And you go the other way, you can be doing like Betty and Barney Hill and Exeter. Like I have yet to really kind of go very far south, even though I've lived here my whole life. It's like I mostly just do the New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont sort of tier stuff. And every summer, I'm like, I got to get down to Rhode Island and Connecticut and look around at some of the weird stuff down there. But that's what
I love about Nashua. It's almost the exact geographic center of New England. I think technically it might be Concord or somewhere between Nashua and Concord. Yeah. But I'm equidistant from almost everywhere in New Hampshire or everywhere in New England, minus some really out of the way spots in Maine. Other than that, I can get to in like 2 hours anywhere.
Yeah, it's awesome. Have you been out to the festival in Whitehall?
No, I have not seen it.
I am the most tireless, besides the Star Trek Museum, I'm a tireless promoter of the Whitehall Festival. It is, I think it gives Mothman Festival a run for its money. I think
they do like Bigfoot calling. I've seen video of it. They do like Bigfoot calling there, right? And they have like a whole like place they can do it, and like it's even on the map. It says like Sasquatch calling. Whatever, I can't remember the name for like outside. The place to actually do it, like it's like
it's like a pavilion.
Yes, like it says on the Google map, it says Sasquatch calling pavilion or whatever, like literally labeled that way. So like, I bet it's amazing. Again, any town that allows 4 major statues, and these are large statues, has invested, right? So like, I'm sure I'm missing out by not having seen that festival yet.
Yeah, you should check it out. I go every year since the first year I went because I've loved it so much, and it gets bigger. And better every year. They it stretches like a quarter mile along the river.
That's amazing.
And they have about 200 vendors of like fantastic quality, thousands of people, like at least a dozen food trucks, a classic rock band, a beer garden, and speakers doing the Bigfoot presentations. This is all like in one quarter mile. Like it's very like it's just a festival, man. It's the best time. I love it every year I go. I'm like, and it gets better every time. So
that's why you do it. Like use Bigfoot as an excuse to party. Like why not? Yeah. Like that's literally like should be a definition of life, right? Yeah, I messed up. So when I wrote my cryptid book, United States of Cryptids, I traveled to a ton of towns that were themed or had monuments or statues. Unfortunately, I was writing that book during COVID, so most of those festivals were all canceled. So that was the time I had to like see all these festivals. I'm like, you know what? I'm still gonna do the book. I have to see the towns, the monuments, the museums. I'll just have to like make up the festivals later, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you should definitely check it out some year. The last, I'll give a shout out. I'm almost certain she's not listening, but Barbara Spoor, who oversees the whole thing. She's done yeoman's work. She It's a year-round job for her to put this thing together, and every year it gets better and better. And she's got an amazing staff of people. And last weekend, that's actually a good time to. This episode's coming out in early September, so it's a good time to plug the event. Anyway, last weekend in September in Whitehall. Anyone who's listening, go out and check it out. It's awesome.
Yeah, and it's again 3 hours from Nashua, so all of New England should be going. All of New York should be going. It's a spot you can get to, even though again you would never go there otherwise. But now you have a reason to, so go.
Yeah. You'll have the time of your life, folks. Trust me. I love it. Now let's go chronological through these 3 books I mentioned, just to hit on them quick. So the first one of the 3 is Cursed Objects. And this is a book on cursed objects, right? Yeah. It's as simple as that.
It was a simple book. And what surprised me when I had this editor, we were trying to like figure it out, figure out what we wanted to do. And brought up cursed objects. And I realized, oh yeah, I do love cursed objects. I was looking through my files, my Otis files and all that. I was like, man, I've been to quite a few cursed objects without realizing it. And then I looked around and there was just no, and I'm still shocked that there's no real comprehensive compendium of famous cursed objects.
Yeah.
All that were out there really were top 10 lists on YouTube and like, whatever. Here's the top 10 scariest cursed objects. But no like legitimate, here are the 50 most historical, most interesting cursed objects out there. Yeah. So it's a big opportunity for me to do something unique again. Because again, I have to have like an angle on it that I think is valuable to people that isn't a book that's been done a million times. So we did it. It was a fun one because not surprisingly, all the famous most of the famous cursed objects are legit artifacts, right? They have besides the paranormal history, they have a historical history, right? They've been various countries and real life people and stuff. And that meant, especially the older ones, they almost always were in museums. So it wasn't like me going through dark, antique malls and the bottoms of basements and stuff. It was literally just going to the London Museum, to the New York Museum, to the Boston, just going to museums. It was like such a fun, mostly, but it was such a fun time. And then like digging into, I've been to a few, cursed object collections and like, it was, way more interesting book than even I realized going into it. Like what I learned about cursed objects as a result of that project was just fascinating to me.
Yeah. Now I want, let's do the unlucky mummy here. Because I pulled that one. I told you before we started, I wasn't going to drill down too deep. I sort of wanted to get more just general discussion on these topics. But the unlucky mummy stuck out to me because it says it's rumored to have sunk the Titanic and kickstarted World War I, which is quite a resume for a cursed mummy.
Every fact about this artifact is surprising. First off, it's called the Unlucky Mummy, and it's not a mummy. It is the lid of our sarcophagus painted like a person, like you see all the time with mummy sarcophaguses.
Oh, okay. All right.
So just a board. It's a human-shaped or sized board with a painting on it. So again, that's astonishing. Second is its story is what made the template for a King Tut curse, which happened afterwards. The Unlucky Mummy the stories around the Unlucky Mummy already kind of introduced people to the concept of a cursed mummy and what it could do. So when King Tut came along, it kind of just followed the trail that the Unlucky Mummy pioneered. The third most interesting thing about the Unlucky Mummy is it's on display at the London Museum. Like it's just,
oh wow,
it's just, and you would never know. Like they have an amazing mummy collection. Obviously, they have amazing everything collection, and there's actual mummies and there's all these amazing things. And you wouldn't even look twice at this lid because there's a million lids in there too. But again, a lid is less interesting than a body. And there's lots of bodies there. But that thing is so storied. And its story is typical. A bunch of Englishmen go to a different country, go to Egypt. And, at the time, Egypt was looting its own tombs and like selling the bodies and stuff like that. And they purchased the board, and the mummy board. And they all, I can't remember, they all suffered misfortune. I think somebody blew his hand off in a hunting thing. Somebody else died. I think a photographer who took a picture of it died. So all these like stories, some true, some false, ended up kind of fueling this mummy. And then it just kind of spread throughout London. It's just the stories through London. And then somehow, and this is the part I don't even understand, how it even got tied to the Titanic story, how it even got tied to the World War story. There's no reason it should have. Like, even I think, I can't remember that the big ship crash in Canada was even tied to that. I think it's because the Unlucky Mummy got so famous that people it was the cursed object, kind of like today,
like a boogeyman kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, today it's like the Hope Diamond is the cursed object everybody thinks about. Maybe back then the Unlucky Mummy was. And, again, it's impossible for it to have sunk the Titanic and still be in the British Museum, right? It's just impossible.
Right. Yeah. That's what I was confused about. Like, wait a minute. How did it? Yeah.
But it's still there. It's still, that story is still, that story still happened. Again, with me, I find value in how it happened, really. Again, there's so many, especially, in the paranormal world, there's so many BS stories. But sometimes those BS stories are valuable as BS stories, right? Like, why did this happen? Why are we telling the story now? We have all this proof against it. How did the story survive still? That to me, that's just as fascinating as this is a real story.
Yeah.
Those interest me.
Yeah. And, we would be remiss. It's kind of old news, I suppose, to people listening in September, but this is the almost mid-July. And you wrote the book on cursed objects, and you had a reaction video, but I didn't watch it. Because I knew I was going to ask you about it tonight. Sure. So I'm like, well, I don't want to spoil his take on this. But we would be remiss in not discussing the recent events with Dan Rivera, the paranormal investigator who passed away while on tour with the Annabelle doll. And it's like the purportedly cursed Annabelle doll. And it's unfortunate. Obviously, it's terribly unfortunate that this guy passed away. I did not know Dan Rivera, so I'm not really a part of the ghost community. But he seemed very beloved by all the folks there. And it's just eerie, obviously, because like the whole thing is like that they tout that this thing is cursed, and then this tragic event happens, and it's like I feel terrible that this guy he'll forever be connected to this doll. Maybe he would love that. Maybe he would be thrilled by that. I kind of like to think that he would be. It's like it's not an apples to apples comparison, but it's like those guys that died in the thing that went down to the Titanic. It's like one of those guys was like the world's biggest Titanic aficionado, and it's like I bet you he's up there right now being like, "Fuck yeah, man! I'm me and the Titanic forever." And it's like, maybe this guy feels that way too, this Dan Rivera guy. I don't know. I mean, my heart goes out to his family and his friends and his colleagues. It's just awful that he passed away like so suddenly and shockingly. But
and so young.
Also
54 years old.
Yeah, it's also very, very bizarre because especially, and maybe you can speak to this in addition to, responding to all my rambling here, is that it's very often too, we hear these stories about cursed objects, but it's like, and maybe you can disabuse me of this notion, but I rarely ever hear of any sort of contemporary events that happen. It's always sort of like legendary cursed objects. And this was like this new chapter to this cursed object has been added in the last couple of weeks that will forever be tied to that doll.
It's super important. So a few things. So first off, like most paranormal lore is extremely vague. Sometimes they're not even names. It's handed down. It's anecdotal.
Yeah.
And Annabelle's history is extremely vague. We really only have and I researched her for cursed objects. It was one of the things the publisher said is you do your cursed object book. You have to have Annabelle in it though. Yeah. And I'm like, she's technically a haunted doll, but like I figured out how to get in there. Because a haunted object can also act as a cursed object under the right circumstances. So I did a lot of research on her. I've seen her. I saw her on tour a couple years ago. She had the stories of Annabelle are very vague. They're undocumented. They're unsubstantiated. Really, we only have the testimony of the Warrens, who, I don't know, depending on your feeling about this, their business model was pretty much make everything up and then publicize it and make a lot of money off it. They were con artists at the very base, which is whatever. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. But that's what they were, and Annabelle was part of that con. And the way Annabelle got infamous was not through her hurting a bunch of people around her through death or misfortune. It's because they locked her away in a box. They put a sign on it that said positively do not open. They told everybody about this doll, and they only brought it out on special occasions, right? So that this lore kind of this atmosphere, this legend grew around her just because, again, it's trapped in this box. Keep it in the box. It was a brilliant move by them, honestly, to make this very, very ordinary, boring Raggedy Ann doll into a thing of malevolence. So it was a pretty good magic trick. And then what happened was, after Lorraine passed, actually before she passed, right, two things happened. Or one thing happened before she passed. And it became a pop culture icon, right? It got its own series of movies. It became famous even in mainstream circles. It was like, it became accessible in a way, right? And it was no more this dark thing locked in a box that nobody ever saw. And then after her death, the people that inherited the doll, they took it out on tour. They took the most dangerous paranormal objects of all time out on tour to the masses, right? And that really defanged her a lot, I think. She became an attraction. People weren't scared of her. When I saw her, there was a giant crowd gathered around her and all the other parts of the Warren collection that were on display. And really impossible to be scared of now, right? Yeah. Especially when you see it. But, and this is kind of how cursed objects works. They stick around long enough, because they're objects, that eventually enough bad shit happens around them. And that's not anything really intrinsic to the cursed object. It's intrinsic to being human, right? We all are going to have misfortune. So if the thing's around long enough, stuff will happen around it, right?
Like statistical.
Exactly, right? But now, so eventually something was going to happen. Somebody that saw it was going to die, or somebody that saw it was going to suffer misfortune. There'd be a lot of stories. Shockingly, it's the handler that it happens to. And even though, again, I don't believe that the doll caused his death, he will forever be tied to the doll. And that means two things. One, she kind of gets her fangs back a little bit. She becomes infamous again. But also, Mr. Rivera's story is going to live forever. Cursed objects at their base are memory devices. They're storytelling devices. There are people that we would even know about, that we kind of lost to history, except their story is wrapped around the cursed object. The Hope Diamond is a good example of that. All the owners of the Hope Diamond we would never even care about. But because this was in their life, we'll always remember their names and their stories. So he will always be remembered as long as Annabelle's around, even maybe after she's, whatever, if she goes up in a fire someday, she'll be a lost cursed object. His story stays alive. And obviously, I think he would also, as you said, kind of be jazzed by that. Obviously, he'd probably want to live longer to be around his family.
Of course. Yeah.
But we're all going to die. If you're going to die, if you can live forever as well, that's not a bad end. And I was when I heard about this, I was highly aware of this, because while I was writing my book on cursed objects, I was visiting them. I was handling them. I bought one for my collection so I could write about owning a cursed object and how to buy one. Yeah. I was intimately involved in cursed objects, and I knew, no matter what my story was at that point, if I happened to die while writing this book, accidentally, heart attack, hit by a car, my story would be the dude dabbled with cursed objects and he shouldn't have, right?
Right, yeah.
Fair, very fair take, right? So I was highly aware that connecting yourself to cursed objects might put you in their body count, right? And that's exactly what happened to every cursed object, right? There's even journalists who never saw their object, never touched their object, never owned the object, just wrote about the object. They're often included in the body count, and they die. They often included, like Otzi the Iceman has a journalist who died of some blood disease after writing about Otzi. Never saw it in his life, never went to Italy. Still, he's mentioned as part of the body count of Otzi the Ice Mummy. So it's a very interesting thing, and I think it's fascinating. Again, being objective, not being a friend or family, not being close to the friends or family of Mr. Rivera, being able to look at it from way back here, it is fascinating to see paranormal lore accrue in real time.
Yes.
That's actually specific, documented, real, right? We have 1,000 newspaper articles now. We have his name. It is a real story. All the other Annabelle stories are probably made up by the Warrens. This one is not. So it is, again, sad, fascinating, weird, all those things. So that's kind of my take. The only other take I didn't mention was it feels like a lot of famous paranormal people are kind of showing their ass on this one a little bit, because a lot of them are saying people shouldn't be connecting Annabelle to Mr. Rivera's death. He's a friend of ours. They should be seeing the newspapers. What are you guys doing? People are suffering right now. They should be seeing this.
I've noticed that too.
Yeah, and I'm like, wait, you mean it's this thing you've been peddling at us for decades is trash now? Like, you should be, according to your conception of the universe, you should be the first one asking the question, did Annabelle do this? And again, they always say, no, Annabelle wasn't in the room. There was no signs of violence. That's not how cursed objects work. Cursed objects, heart attacks, all the ways people die are attributed to cursed objects. Yeah. So watching paranormalists backtrack when it gets real is super fascinating to me. It's very telling, unfortunately, but they should be the first ones being again, they have no problem telling death stories in the past. They have no problem saying this is I mean, even Mr. Rivera was very careful about this is a cursed object. They were selling it. They were selling tickets to it. So, you live by the ghost story, you die by the ghost story. It's fine. You should be able to do that, but you shouldn't live by the ghost story and then backtrack the second it gets real, right? That's kind of problematic to me. It's just not, because it's not logically consistent to me.
I'm glad you said that because I've been thinking that as I've watched this unfold myself, where it's like it kind of reminds me a little bit of like when a tragedy happens in like the world of wrestling, where they're like, "Hey, come on, this is real. This is real. That is what happened to this guy. Cut the shit. Stop pretending like this is fake. You know that all the shit you normally see is fake. This is real, and have some respect." And it's like you've broken kayfabe by they completely disregard kayfabe, and I get that because for them it was a very real thing, but
Right, and
they completely like tore down the curtain and were like, all right, enough of this speculation that we've been fueling for all these years.
Yeah, they sell the risk, and then when that risk actually does come to pay the piper, then they kind of like shift a bit. It's which again, understandable in a way, right? You don't want to like treat anybody's death casually, but again, you do have to take some accountability in what you say and do and how you sell things and push things. You just should to stay consistent in your own moral ideas.
Right. And I mean, it would be tasteful if whoever, wherever this thing goes next, they should, maybe just make a mention of this guy, say a prayer for him, but don't fucking exploit it. That's the thing. I hope they don't, because it's like, that would be.
Yeah. I'm of two minds of that, right? Because I'm of two minds about that. A is my whatever is left of my moral center, the dregs in the middle of my heart, it says don't exploit it. This guy's a real person with a family, and the other part of me is saying you've been doing that. If you're not going to exploit this one, don't exploit any of them. Don't exploit any of them. Stop pouring a cursed object around as an object of fascination. Either it's dangerous or it's not. I have this problem with cursed object collections, where I'm just like, this stuff is either dangerous or it's not. And collectors always have, we do a ceremony to make sure I'm very much, I'm an expert on these things. I can handle them. And I'm like, they're dangerous or they're not, man. I don't get it. They're either
right.
But then I try to be on both sides. I'm like, well, we also have zoos, right? Zoos are full of dangerous animals, but we send our kids there. So is it kind of like that? But the truth is, those zoos take tons of experts, tons of like funding, tons of things to make a safe place for people to see artifacts. Paranormalists just take them in a tent to the local convention, right? This is
right, exactly.
Let everybody touch them and stuff. So I just want consistency. I don't care where you land, whether they're real or not. I just want consistency in what you're doing, because I exploiting people's beliefs is one of my. It's like a big sin for me. Like don't scam people. Like don't scam people.
Right.
Like, if you believe what you're doing, good, but act like you believe it. Like, don't I don't know. It's just really easy to. Snake oil salesmen have been profiting off people our entire existence as humanity, and it's just kind of like we're still doing it. I mean, 2025, right. Preying on people's griefs and losses and like gullibilities and hopes and all those things. We're preying on those things. It's just sometimes sad.
Yeah.
Also, sometimes
human nature's away.
It's human nature. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I mean, it would be disappointing if it was exploited, but at the same time, I would not be surprised at all. Like, I have a feeling that there's cable channels and streaming services right now chomping at the bit to tell.
Oh, it's gonna be so interesting. It's so interesting. You're right. You're dead right, because if you do think that thing's dangerous, and if you think maybe there's a possibility that Mr. Rivera did die from a dangerous cursed objects, what are you supposed to do? Lock that thing away, throw it in the ocean, right? Is what you're supposed to do. If you think it wasn't connected to Rivera's death and it's completely harmless, what's your angle for touring a Raggedy Ann doll around now? Like, right. It's they're almost at a rock and a hard place now.
Catch-22, yeah.
Exactly. Because again, their basic idea was a bit inconsistent already. So like now we have this like real case study to see what happens. And I assume they're just going to keep touring it, and they're not going to. That's
the impression I'm under. Yeah,
they're going to be very respectful of Mr. Rivera in general, but they're just going to keep making money with that doll. Like it's just it's so again. I don't want to judge anybody. To me, I love the situation. It's so fascinating and like such a case study.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. I fancy myself sort of the paranormal observer, so I kind of watch over all this from above. Mm-hmm. Not just from an observational point of view. I'm in the trenches with everybody else as far as like all this crazy shit goes. So I love everybody in the paranormal. But yeah, so I've been kind of watching it in that vein. And it was I remember because I wrote it up for Coast to Coast, and I was like, when I saw the story, I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Like this is a story you hear This is like kind of like what you're saying. This is the kind of story you would dig up when you were writing your Cursed Objects book. The handler died while touring the object. It's like, oh, cut the shit. That didn't really fucking happen in 1912. That's just a story that got attached to it. And then it's like, boom, this just happened. And it, like you said, it's real. This really happened. This, what, maybe in 50 or 100 years, people will think was an urban legend. No, it really fucking happened.
We have the newspapers now. So when I try to find the photographer who died by taking a picture of the unlucky mummy, I can't find that newspaper. It probably never happened. But this one, I'll be able to find. And you know what a good comparison is? I think almost the same day that Mr. Rivera died, or maybe it was the next day, Felix Baumgartner died. Right? Yeah. Felix Baumgartner was the daredevil, the guy that jumped from the stratosphere, right, in a spacesuit, like one of the most amazing human feats of all time. And he died piloting a plane around, and nobody was like, or he died. I can't remember how he died. He died in an
accident doing some stunt thing.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was a heart attack while doing the stunt, and like it was dead before he hit. But nobody was like, man, Felix Baumgartner was a daredevil, but that had nothing to do with his death. No, it was part of the story. It's consistent. Him dying as a daredevil is consistent with his life. It makes sense. Nobody is saying stop daredeviling. Nobody is saying let's not talk about daredeviling stuff out of respect for Baumgartner. No, we're kind of celebrating his accomplishments after his death. Same thing should have happened with but something similar could have happened with Annabelle. They could be like, yeah, we got a little too casual in how we're handling her. We got a little too casual with this. You live by the cursed object, you die by the cursed object. He lived by the daredevil and died by the daredevil. And that is fine. So just like either own it, you got to own it. That's what it is, right? You have to own it. If you're walking around saying this is a cursed object that has killed people and hurt people, and then somebody around it gets hurt or dies, you have to kind of own it in some way. And if you just kind of like poo-poo it, you kind of like make your entire platform empty, I guess.
Yeah, untenable.
Yeah.
So that's Cursed Objects. We'll jump in now. So what made you pivot then? So you wrote Cursed Objects. Then a few years later, United States of Cryptids. So what sort of led to this evolution, if you will?
So Cursed Object was pretty successful, especially for me. And, it went to like 12 languages. It's my first book with this particular publisher. Did really well. And they're like, well, let's do another book. What else weird shit do you do? I'm like, well, every weird shit. I don't know. And then my editor was like, well, you want to write a book about cryptids? And I'm like, no. I'm like, I love cryptids. But every single year, a generic cryptid encyclopedia comes out. That just recycles everything before it. And, grabs all of Lauren Coleman's work and grabs all these foundational guys' works. And it's just, I'm not going to add to that cacophony. I need to be able to own this. And I'm not just going to write a cryptid encyclopedia. There's a bazillion out there. She's like, well, I think you should. Just think about it. So I went away. Again, I started looking to my Otis archives. And I'm like, wait a minute. I travel a lot to cryptid statues and cryptid towns and cryptid monuments. I'm like, and there's a lot out there. And then I realized, I just do a cryptid book the way I do all my books. I travel to shit and I write about it. And in this case, we'll talk about towns celebrating their cryptids. I don't have to write just an encyclopedia. This is going to be a travel log. And I went back to her and I'm like, hey, let's do it like an Otis book. Like, let's do a travelogue of cryptid towns. And like, that's my angle. And she's like, okay, go for it. So now, just like Cursed Objects, where I get to go to a million museums, here's me traveling around the country to all these little towns that I would never get to otherwise, folk and all those kinds of weird places. And that's kind of what it is. So in a way, it's a big pivot from Cursed Objects to cryptids. But another way, it's just another weird travelogue for me. So it kind of fits my genre that I guess I'm one of the only ones in there. I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
There's other weird
cool.
travelogue people.
I like that. So did you have, I hate doing these sort of questions, but it's sort of like a standard, but did you have a favorite place that you visited? It's just a little different than from favorite cryptid in a sense, where it's like, did you have a favorite sort of destination that you went to that you were like, I love this whole
It's gonna be a boring answer, but I think the explanation will be good. It is literally Point Pleasant, and I didn't even go for the festival, right? This has nothing to do with the festival. So the reason why I love it, I love Mothman in general. I mean, he has a big resurgence now. He's almost like annoyingly popular now, but I've always loved like the idea of a giant insectoid flying man. John Keel's books were like some of the first books I read in the paranormal when I was a kid, so that was very influential. And then on top of that, the way that so having that unique creature, right? Again, not Bigfoot, not a lake monster, a very unique creature was appealing to me. And then the way this town embraced it, they're kind of the original town to embrace it. Most of the cryptid festivals out there now all based it on the success of the Mothman Festival in Point Pleasant because that tiny town of a few thousand grows to 10,000 every September, all the stuff. So they embrace it in ways that are unique, though. A museum, a giant stainless steel statue.
The statue is the key. The statue is the key.
Yes, especially in this Instagram world. Exactly right. Not in some eccentric businessman's backyard, in the middle of town. The museum is good. The museum is cool. You got themed businesses. You've got, for some reason, Point Pleasant is a land of monuments. Even aside from the Mothman, every 3 inches is a monument to something, whether it's history or the bridges or stuff. And then on top of that, what is really unique about Point Pleasant is you can go kind of have the same experience they had in 1960 and 61 by going to the TNT area, right? So the Mothman is seen most often outside of town, as you know, in there's these giant World War II munitions bunkers are shaped like house-sized igloos, and they're all out in the middle of the forest, and like it's a public forest these days. And you can go there. I did this in the middle of the night, took my oldest daughter, and we shined lights around, went inside of these things, are graffitied everywhere. And it really did feel like any second the Mothman could pop up. Whereas you go to Whitehall, all the sightings are on a bare road. It's a road. Or it's an anonymous stretch of forest that this cryptid saw. So most cryptids are very vague as far as like spot, but not the Mothman. You can go out into the TNT area and have an adventure. And that's why it's unique. So again, the creature's unique. The story is also unique because it's probably the only cryptid with a story arc. Like every single story starts with red eyes, drunk teens, back roads, middle of the night, right? That's the story of every single cryptid. And they always end with, and it was never seen again.
Yeah.
Point about Mothman ends with a tragedy, right? That's kind of where people cut the story off.
Right.
So you have kind of an arc. But then again, the way it's embraced, which is my kind of, again, a reason to go to Point Pleasant for me. And then the TNT area is so evocative. And so, again, it feels like you're actually hunting cryptids as opposed to visiting a statue.
Absolutely. Yeah. You hit the nail on the head. I went there like in 2022 and I have 2 recommendations for people. I'm kind of a bit of a paranormal travel junkie myself. So I apologize for, place dropping alongside you. But yeah. And what I thought was really interesting is Steve Ward, who is part of the Mothman Museum, is friends with some of the guys I was with. So he took us out to the TNT area and everything. And I am the dirt road where it was first seen. And it's like you can stand where the Mothman was. Yeah. He's like, the car was there. The Mothman was like right about here. And it's like, I'm standing where Mothman stood. It's like, aside from like Dealey Plaza, there's not many other places in the world where you can really stand in the spot something earth-shattering occurred. So
especially something that's typically vague, it's a paranormal event, right?
Right.
I had this amazing picture that my daughter took. She was like 12 or 13 at the time. We were inside the bunker, and I'm holding up a lantern, like an electric lantern, illuminating a portion of wall that in giant graffiti letters just says Mothman lives. And it's like, yes, that's what I want. More. I mean, I love going to the local bar and getting whatever local brew is named after the local cryptid. There's always that, right? But like that, again, as a fake adventurer, I always call myself like a milk toast Josh Gates. Like as a fake adventurer who just kind of travels to tourist spots. I love that, just at least the feeling of that you're doing something forbidden and dangerous and paranormally dangerous and all those things. That really appeals to me.
Yeah. The other bit of advice I always give people is that you can also, I recommend this. This is like, if everyone's ever looking, you want to take a weekend to fucking do something cool. You fly out to Charleston, West Virginia, and then you can do an hour to the west is Mothman, and an hour to the east is the Flatwoods Monster, almost perfectly aligned. And you can stay in Charleston, and you fly in and out. That was one of the best weekends of my life because it was like everything was like so like a Swiss clock of weirdness. It was like everything.
West Virginia,
perfectly.
I always think Massachusetts is the state with the most weirdness. Again, it's old and like every square inch. Next to Massachusetts, it feels like West Virginia has so much, everything from cryptids to the Greenbrier ghost to like all these like really cool things that, again, I've vacationed to West Virginia before. Just driving around it, it's Moundsville Penitentiary and the mound there. Just so much cool stuff that's like, again, in West Virginia, a place that, again, people, unless you're in Appalachia, you don't really think about, right? So I love West Virginia just because it has so much weird stuff. It feels like an unexplored country to me.
Yeah, quite frankly, my family kind of look at me a little askew because I'm like, I think I'm pretty much retiring to West Virginia someday. Like I'm eventually gonna get old, get tired of paying way out of the nose for everything in Massachusetts and move to West Virginia where everything's much cheaper.
Yeah,
and
beautiful.
And there's cryptids, creatures, and legends. You can't swing a dead cat without bumping into some kind of cryptid that had haunted the area. It's like it's an amazingly magical place.
It is. I used to live not too far from Charleston. I used to live like on the border of. It was in Maryland, but it was like literally. I could almost see Harper's Ferry from my house. Like you drive, a block and you're in Virginia, another block you're in West Virginia. We're all three states kind of connected. So I was like, I had special access to West Virginia, at least that part of it. It's a giant, pretty large state, so you have access to all of it. Yeah.
It's a wild place. I really love it a lot. And
too.
Have you been out to the Flatwoods area also? Then I take it.
I have indeed. I have a ceramic Flatwoods monster that I bought there, right on my shelf.
One right here on my desk too.
So it's another good example. You would never, ever, 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 ever go to that town your entire life, either on accident or on purpose.
Right.
Except for now to go see the Flatwoods monster. Like again, and they do it well. They have a museum. They have like those chairs they have around everywhere. So it's a very unique monster. It's not Bigfoot. It's very unique. Nobody else can have this like weird Christmas tree looking alien robot cryptid thing. And they embrace it pretty well, Sullivan and that area.
Yeah. It's like the Kecksburg. What's that? Like a
UFO, the acorn.
Yeah, acorn. Yeah, that's the word I was. Yeah, it looks like the acorn UFO. It's like that's it. They're like they got it. They got the unique.
I went there the first time last year. I saw the one that's left over from Unsolved Mysteries when they did a recreation. It's like up on the stand. Really? It's right there in the middle of town.
Down there yet? Yeah,
it's really cool.
Got to check that out. Yeah, that's a real cool area. I feel like West Virginia. You're saying Massachusetts. I suppose I live here. I'm jaded, so I'm like I don't know. But it's like West Virginia, and I feel like there's Pennsylvania and Wisconsin feel like the other two that are like preternaturally weird. Like there's like an overabundance of weirdness in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and a few other states, but those two, not the big ones, California, Texas, Florida, sure, of course. Even New York, it's like there's a lot there. But but you don't really expect it necessarily. Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, West Virginia, those seem like the big places like where you can see a lot of strange stuff.
Yeah, I agree. My first two books were the New England Grippendium, which was death-related sites all over New England, then New York Grippendium. And if I had done a third book, it was going to be Pennsylvania. And then, because again, access, but also because there's so much stuff there. It's a relatively large state for the East Coast. And then I do this bit in when I do presentations about cryptids, where I say, okay, what state has the coolest cryptid celebrations? Rule out Bigfoot and rule out lake monsters. Take those off the plate, the very unique ones. And it's Wisconsin. Wisconsin has like the hodags and trolls and all.
Dogman.
Yeah, they've got the Wendigo, and they have I think 5 different places where you can find actual statues of cryptids. So that one, Wisconsin, is you nailed it. You nailed my own opinions as well on that.
Yeah. I haven't been out to Wisconsin yet, but it's sort of on my bucket list of places to check out.
They have the House on the Rock. That you got to see that. They've got like Ed Gein sites, kind of like another sidebar of mine is murder sites. It's again another state that doesn't get referenced very often, but should be.
Yeah. Well, by the time people hear this, I'm doing a journey down to Kentucky in the beginning of September to check out some of the strange places down there. The goblins, dude. You wouldn't even know, believe me, dude. The goblins, the giant Noah's Ark.
I've been there. I've been to Noah's Ark.
What's it like? What's the giant Noah's Ark like?
Oh, it's fantastic. And again, so I'm an ex. So I used to be. I was raised fundamental.
Is it like I'm imagining? It's a lot in a sense, and you're one of the few people who could probably enlighten me to this. I imagine it's kind of like the fucking Star Trek thing, where everything's kind of like state of the art, clean. That was the thing when I noticed when I went into the Star Trek thing. It was like everything in Ticonderoga was like dusty and kind of old. You get in there, you thought you were walking into an AMC cinema, like they had people vacuuming the fucking rug before they opened that day. And it's like I'm like kind of expecting that with the Ark, that I'm like gonna roll around the corner and be like, oh shit, this is a state of the art facility that there are people there.
So I grew up as an independent fundamentalist. So I was a very religious person for the first 25 years of my life, and then I finally sloughed it. But so I had a little bit of PTSD in there. But trying to step back objectively, first of all, that thing looks like a giant ark from outside. It is amazing. And then inside, it's really cool. They don't have as many exhibits as you'd think. They have a couple cool animatronic dinosaurs, but it's mostly a lot of, at least when I went there, which is probably 4 years ago, a lot of poster exhibits, right? So inside, it's not as realistic as the Star Trek. Like Star Trek is like, okay, this could be a working starship. Inside there, it's not full of animals, not full of animatronics, but it has some. But it is super oppressive. Like that, even just taking the Noah's Ark story as a story, that they recreated this giant boat in the middle of Kentucky is, you get your money's worth. Yeah, you get it's really cool.
Excellent. Yeah, then we're heading over to Great Serpent Mound.
I love Great Serpent Mound. I've been there too. Yeah.
Nice. All right. These are all new places for me, so I'm really looking forward to checking them all out. Yeah,
that's great. I've been to quite a few like animal mounds. Figure mounds. Yeah. Snake one's the best though because they actually have an observation tower. You can go up and see the whole thing.
Okay.
Whereas a lot of the other ones I've been to, like the Underwater Panther, which is not too far, it's an hour away from the Serpent Mound. They don't have that, but like this, they have it's really cool. You can actually see the serpent there without having to like.
Oh, nice. Okay,
otherwise
good.
Kind of the side of it, and you just kind of see like a hill that moves.
Oh, good. Yeah, because I'm as we put this all together this weekend, I've kind of been. That's the one I'm kind of like, I don't know. Is it worth really seeing this giant serpent mount? But it sounds like it is. All right.
Oh, it is 100%. Yeah, I did a trip. I did the Ark. It was me and my 1-year-old baby. It was just the two of us. I went to the Ark, the Serpent Mound. I think. Who's the Jim Varney's grave? I think we went to a statue. Nice. But he's down in Kentucky. So we did a giant Kentucky fest. I think my oldest daughter was at like a horse festival there because it's Kentucky, So me and the baby just went and did our own thing.
Yeah, so it'll be a great weekend. Yeah, then we're gonna hit down to Somerset and check out some of the weird stuff down there. Down to Mammoth Cave, and then that's the end of the weekend. So a packed weekend of weirdness. But
that sounds amazing. And you'll remember that for the rest of your life. It'll be an amazing trip. It'll be exhausting, but amazing.
It usually is. Yeah, we do these every year. We've hit a ton of different places. So, all right. So that's United States of Cryptids. And I want to get into cult following. I thought this was really interesting. So I'm looking, this is more, obviously, Welcome to the Ghost Show is the most recent, just came out. But this is the other.
Most recent nonfiction is what that is.
Right. Yeah. Most recent nonfiction. Cult Following came out about a year ago, September 2024. And what I thought was interesting is you break down the cults by sort of different motivations, if you will. And they're sort of the search for truth, protection, purpose, salvation, and betterment. I guess explain that a little bit and sort of what the thinking was there in how you categorize these different cults.
It was a couple things. I mean, most cult stories pretty much tell the story from the story of the cult leader, because that's kind of the interesting person, honestly, in the cults.
Right.
But also, in a way, once you start reading about enough cults, not interesting, because it's the same kind of, they all go through the same evolution of like charismatic leader to a power, abusive person, right? Every single time. And so we wanted to try something different, try to look at it we want to make this as human a book as possible. Even though I write about oddity, we wanted to kind of counterintuitively wanted to turn cults into not oddities. Was the idea. And on top of that, obviously, like I said, I have a huge past in religion. I went to a Christian college. I have like all kinds of like. I went to college in Clearwater, which is like the home of Scientology, right? So there's.
Oh yeah.
And I was an independent Christian, so I had all that stuff around me. And the third one was at the time I was writing that book, my entire like personal life had just imploded. It was like tragedies everywhere, destructions and stuff. So I was very much more empathetic than I've been in my entire life to other people's plights, right?
Yeah.
So watching people go through what they went through, why they joined cults, became actually more interesting to me, right? How they sought help, how they sought what they sought from the cults. And what I landed on as a result of that book was that cults are the most normal thing we can do. They're not odd. They're not strange. They can always end up doing strange things, of course, but nothing any stranger than any other religion's done. Right. But what we do as people is we join a group of people with like-minded ideas or histories or experiences under a charismatic leader that we believe in, and we just operate in that. We do that in business. We do that in families. We do that in friends. We do that in hobbyist groups. The impulse to join a cult is as human as the impulse to be human, right?
Yeah.
So once I kind of approached it, once I kind of like landed on that angle as I was writing the book, it just became really obvious to me that as salacious as cult documentaries can be, and as salacious as the acts that cult leaders and their followers can actually perform, and there's some really bad ones. These are still, no more human than we always ask this question. Let me step back. We always ask this question: am I gullible enough to join a cult? Right? We always, while we're watching this cult, watching actual adult human beings getting talked into doing disreputable things. Right? We're like, or things that are obviously like false. Right? We're like, am I gullible enough? Do I know anybody who's gullible enough? And what I learned is that's not the right question. The question is, and again, I kind of lived it. If you are having a crisis in your life, whether it's an existential crisis, you don't know what's going on, a family crisis, a financial crisis, any kind of crisis, and you'll accept help, then you can join a cult. It so happens, again, I use the metaphor, if you're drowning and somebody reaches out a hand to save you, you don't look at the hand. You don't question the hand. You don't examine the hand. Right. You just grab it desperately. And then once you're in the boat, you don't care about anything. You're just so relieved to be alive that you're not asking any questions. But before you know it, that boat has gone a very long way. And at some point, you do have to ask yourself the questions: do I jump back in the water, or do I keep going in the direction of the boat? So to me, it became so human. Like the more I dug into it, even people that did really gross things, the people that believed really outlandish, extravagant things, the people that the Heaven's Gate, everybody kind of committed suicide to jump on the UFO in the comments, right? Things that sound outlandish are some of the most human acts I've ever seen. Right. Acts of empathy, acts of ignorance, all the things that make us human, right? So I became very much like, oh, cults are just us. Like it became so normal. And that's kind of what I wanted people to get out of it is they aren't any more salacious than anything else we do in life. It just so happens. What happens, what the difference is usually one person who's very abusive, and that ups the salaciousness, ups the power hungry, power trips. And, that's kind of the difference is how bad that person becomes. But in general, humans are humans. And we did that book because, my writing style is very casual, very jokey, very much my worldview. It sounds like the way I talk is how I write. Yeah. And I wanted to tackle a subject that I could still make jokes about, but it was serious, right? If I make jokes about Bigfoot, nobody cares. If I make jokes about like torture, depravity, can I walk that fine line of being honest, helpful, informative, entertaining, and talk about like 30 different cults that are very, very, very interesting. So that was the whole point of that book, was all those kind of like ideas crashing together and yielding the one that's out there.
Yeah, I like that. So you kind of took it as a challenge in a sense to sort of like,
exactly. Can my voice tackle actual serious things?
Yes, yeah.
I have no idea what the answer is. Yes. It's done. I have no idea what the answer is, though.
Well, you did a really good job just now of like demystifying cults in a way that I haven't really kind of heard before, or that I can recall. It really kind of, as I was listening to you, I was like, he's right that cults are not as zany as people kind of make them out to be, and they're actually pretty, self-explanatory and everything. So
they have zany beliefs sometimes. They have zany beliefs, but like you don't have to be in a cult to have a zany belief. Like, look at your average religion. We're so used to those beliefs that we don't seem as zany, but they are very zany. Look at your paranormalists. We have zany beliefs. So everyday people have zany beliefs. Like it's not, again, it's another part of being human is we do all have, zany beliefs and cognitive dissonance, right? We have that phrase cognitive dissonance because of a UFO cult in Chicago that a researcher from Minnesota inserted his team into. And that's how we even have the phrase cognitive dissonance. It came out of a cult study. But that explains so much about us, that we can hold two opposing ideas in our head and still operate. So I try to make them make sense. We can just do that,
Yeah. Well, I'm probably one of the few people that's been like, well, no, that can't be true. I'm sure a lot of people kind of say this, but it's like, I sometimes would like to join a cult just to see what like the behind the scenes of the cult is like. Because when I was out in California, we went to the Aetherius Society in LA, and this kid was there from Florida. He had moved there to be a part of it. And I'm like, I think this is a cult. And then I'm like, I would love to see the world through this kid's eyes and be like, I just moved from Florida. I'm in, maybe I'm in a room with like 5 other recruits, and it's like you have no privacy, or maybe you do. Maybe you get a private room. I don't know. That's the thing. I have no idea what goes on behind closed doors. at the Ethereum Society. And I was like, fuck, man, that would be kind of fun. But then I'm like, would I get in too deep? Probably.
Yeah.
And then I would be like, now I'm a high priest or whatever. And I'm
No, it's exactly right.
tax evasion.
But it is, there's something, you're right. There's something alluring about, I just want a group of people to be mine, my group of people, and it's just us, right? There's something, and shutting out the cacophony of the world, right? There's something about that is so attractive, you know? And again, we do all the time. How many times have young people gone to jail for doing a crime only because they were in a group of people that did the crime, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So but again, you have friends, and a lot. If you hear interviews with some cult members whose leaders got thrown in jail for all the usual crimes, usually sexual abuse and some kind of financial laundering, they always say like, no, yeah, they were doing bad stuff, I guess, but I had friends here. We were doing fun work. It was like a communal atmosphere. It was beneficial to my life, and I wish it could have kept going and not had a bad leader, right? So again, it's much more complicated than just some gullible person got talked into doing bad stuff.
Exactly.
Very bad leaders. That's so not. It's just not right. In a way, it's true, but like you have to say that about yourself at the same time.
Right. Yeah, I think people get this misconception that cult members are like brainwashed zombies.
Yeah.
When they're really just people who maybe are down on their luck and found community. And again, they're not even in the upper tier of the people who are, paying the electric bill on the compound and have to deal with all that stuff. They're kind of just like the foot soldiers, and they're like, this is pretty fucking good. I don't have to work.
Yeah.
I have friends. And again, it's like, I'd love to know what goes on behind the closed doors, because I bet it's a lot more. Also, people think, like, again, brainwashed, zombies, crazy shit. I bet it's a lot more fucking mundane than people could possibly imagine. It's like, who's washing the dishes this week?
It's
Brian?
Probably, and if your biggest problem is who's washing the dishes, you're probably in a pretty decent place, right?
Yeah.
And I think people don't realize there's probably hundreds of thousands of cults out there, right? And that just tells me they're meeting a basic human, or a set of basic human needs. If we have this void in our life, there's the fact that those can fill it. It again says so much about us individually, And again, anybody that's in a religion, an active like mainstream religion, like you can't cast any dispersions on cults, because again, once upon a time, your giant religion was a bunch of weird people that had a kooky idea, that nobody believed. You grew huge enough to not fail, right? You're big enough to not fail, because most cults end because they're so small that when the controversy happens, they fall apart, or the leader dies without a succession plan. Catholics, right? How many freaking controversies have they gone through? And all they do is cut out the bad parts, right? They try to, right? Like they're big enough that they can like, look at, it's not all Catholics, it's just this group over here, right? And they continue, right? They're mainstream enough to weather the bad times, and all cults are they're just not big enough to weather the bad times. That's a great
observation. Yeah, that's absolutely, yeah. It's kind of like you can kind of see that transition, maybe, we'll take another generation or two before we really know, but like the Scientology thing, it's like that started out as a little cult, and now it's like a giant is it a religion? I don't know. It's kind of.
Dude, I feel like you read the book. I read my mind, because I always tell this story where, because I write nonfiction, because I interview people, I have a risk of libeling people at all times, right? Yeah. So every time I write a book, the lawyers come in, they make sure I have a permission, all these things are in place, whatever. I can prove what was said, all those things. This was the cult books. The first time the lawyers came in at the beginning and had to like pre-approve the TOC, because calling somebody a cult could be defamatory. And one cult that they were kind of skittish about was Scientology. So I didn't include
they're very litigious, right? And everything else.
Yeah, and exactly, and they're litigious. So we didn't include it in there. But over the course of writing the book, I started realizing I'm so glad I didn't put them in there, because they kind of fit my definition of a mainstream religion. Like you said, they've weathered controversy, from like FBI raids to celebrity whistleblowers. They've grown bigger and bigger. And, like you said, another generation, they might grow even bigger. So I feel like they meet my definition of a religion more than they meet my definition of a cult, right?
Yeah.
So you read my mind on that one too.
Yeah. Especially as like one of these groups like becomes more expansive, where it's like, okay, now they're in LA, and it's like they're in different parts of the world, and it's like, okay, it's taken root.
Once they can survive the death of a leader, they can live forever, right? They can always find other, once they're dispersed enough to have multiple leaders and a succession plan, all those things, They can survive most calamities.
Absolutely. All right. So you visited like thousands of places over the years. Do you have a bucket list of like places that you haven't got a chance to go to that you'd really like to check out? Someday you hope to hit.
I remember I used to have this top 10 list, and I can't remember what's on it anymore, but it's changed over the years, because part of the problem is my weird meter is completely cockeyed now, right?
Right.
I've learned,
I know
especially,
that.
Yeah, especially when I share things online, like a video on TikTok or something on social media that I think is super weird. And a lot of times people just like, eh. And then I share something I think is kind of mundane, and everybody's like, that is the weirdest, coolest thing ever. I just don't have because I've seen so much, I just don't have a good bearing on what people know about already. Do people know about Centralia? Do people know about the Prague, the Church of Bones in Prague? I have no idea anymore. But I've heard about those every day of my oddity life. But I haven't heard much about the arm of St. Edmunds in Connecticut, right? That most people don't. I think most people don't know about. So my weird meter is so off. I don't know what I always in my head the thing I want to see the most, and it's not even really a place. I'm kind of obsessed with Joseph Carey Merrick, the Elephant Man. Like, I believe his perspective on life must have been so unique. And again, I'm always looking for something unique. Must have been so unique that I've really always dug into his story. I have a poster of David Lynch's movie right here beside me. So I would always wanted to go see his skeleton, which you're not allowed to. It's like hidden away in like the London hospital. It's off limits to like looky-loos because, again, out of respect, I guess. But yeah, I'm one of those guys. I have no problem with human remains in museums, as long as there's not like a family member you're crossing or an ethnic group you're kind of like you stole it from, right?
Right.
As you meet like basic parameters, I have no problem with human remains on display in museums. Yeah. I don't think the human body is holy or anything. I think it's fascinating and interesting, and I wouldn't mind my own body being on display when I died. Right. So I would like. That's one of the things I've always wanted to see from the beginning, because again, the Elephant Man story is so interesting to me and unique in very specific ways. Obviously, there's a lot of people with conditions and like that weren't treated in those times, but like his specific story. So that was the one. I always wanted to see. What's that big? I left my head. That giant rock in Australia.
That I don't know that one.
It'll come to me at some point. Only because I think I saw it in a movie at some point. I don't know. So there's a few things, but like. I don't, man, I have to go back to my archives. I don't regularly think about those things because usually I'm pretty pragmatic in what I go see. It's usually not me planning this giant, bucket list trip. It's usually, okay, I have a weekend. I haven't been to Ohio in a while. Like what's in Ohio on my map that I can go see? Or my girls want to do a cross-country trip. What's on the way of this cross-country trip? So I'm usually like picking the place and then kind of filling it in with my map. I'm rarely... finding the thing and going after, which I probably should change. I'm getting old enough that like I probably should get on some of that. Like actually focus on like what are the dozen things that I've never seen, heard about all my life, want to go see those dozen things. But there's just so much. It's like I've seen so much of my life, and like these patterns have helped me out so much. I haven't been able to change them to like bucket list level. But again, every once in a while I'll see something I've been dreaming about since I first started the Otis website, right? Like going to the Greenbrier Ghost site was a big one for me, or seeing Loch Ness. I've never seen Loch Ness. Like it's almost like embarrassing for me to see. I've been to Scotland once for like one day, but I've never been to Loch Ness, and it's almost embarrassing for me to admit it. So I need to go see it, even though again that's so mainstream and touristed. It's almost like going to Salem these days, right? It's probably a lot of gift shops and souvenirs. But I feel like if I die without seeing Loch Ness, I've invalidated my entire career.
Oh, don't say that.
But yeah, no, there's just so much. There's so much cool stuff, even just in the U.S. It's hard for me to get out of the U.S. sometimes because I'm just so obsessed with like. But I've been to 49 states. I'm still missing Alaska.
Oh wow. Nice.
I've kind of done the United States. Again, even though I have thousands of pips on my map that I haven't seen yet. Man, it's a good question. I've seen like. Back in the day, if you'd ask me, like, I would want to see the Capuchin crypts in Rome, and I've seen those. I would see the Bone Church in Prague. It always involves, like, again, macabre death stuff. And so, that's what it always comes down to for me, I think.
When did you start Otis?
2007 is when I started Otis.
Okay, perfect. Because I started Binnall America in 2005, so we're both the same paranormal generation, let's say.
Yeah, exactly.
How can you reflect a little bit, and to smash the fourth ball some, on sort of how the online scene has changed in the last nearly 20 years since you started Otis? Because it's, to me, being sort of in the river, I find it fascinating to sort of see how this has changed after all this time. People come and people go, but I've been in the river for 20 years, so it's like, it's really remarkable. And as you kind of, it's quaint, you started with a blog, and you're mentioning, and hats off to you, dude, because you are clearly sharper than I am with this shit, because I never bothered to like get into, we just put on the YouTube channel like a couple of years ago just to get the shit on YouTube, because people were like, why isn't this on YouTube? But I'm not like on Instagram or TikTok or any of that stuff. It sounds like, or doing videos and stuff like that. And you have kept up with the evolution of all this. So I guess, can you just, reflect a little bit on sort of how things have changed and sort of this new world we're in, where, like you said, and I'll start now, it's like blogging and sort of articles, and now people are putting up these like 30-second, pretty well put together videos and shit. It's like, wow, this is really a whole new world.
Yeah, I even go a little further. My first ever website, which wasn't an oddities website, first ever website me and a friend started was in 2000. So we were right there. It was like it was a pop culture website at the end of the day. So what I always liked about starting in the blogging world was, first off, there's no other time that I could have succeeded at what I do, because even though I'm a travel writer, I suck at maps. I don't know my cardinal directions. Left and right, I have to think about for about 3 or 4 seconds. If you ever in a car with me and my friends in the passenger seat, they always say, turn left. They have to point as I say it, else I'll take the wrong one every single time. But I started this thing in a world where we had MapQuest directions and Gmail, Google directions, and we had GPS units. This is pre-cell phones.
Yeah, just GPS better.
Units. Yeah. So now suddenly this guy that can't read a map, can't find his way out of a paper bag, can find any square inch on the planet easily, right?
Yeah.
And nowadays we can I can preview stuff on Google Street View, Google Earth. So I think the way it's changed though is that, unfortunately, it's become a lot less personal, I think. When I started Otis, again, the point was to go visit the things. And then writing the blog post was like fun to connect with people, but it wasn't the point. The point was to go see the thing. Nowadays, with social media, everybody is so obsessed with making what they call content, which I could spend 3 hours talking about that word. Yeah. They're so obsessed with making content that content is the point more than the experience. And everybody, and I did it. I started this thing without any kind of assignment. I wasn't an official travel writer. So anybody can do it. And I'm glad that anybody can do it. But there's so much sameness out there. Like, again, there's so much information. Everybody's been to Centralia. Everybody's been to all these places, which is cool. People should go places. But they're all looking for an angle to fame or something. There's something they're looking for that I wasn't looking for when I started. I was just looking for a way to not die of depression or whatever and boredom.
Right, exactly. Same here.
But now everybody needs to document themselves, right? And and I am problematic for this. Before selfies were taken, I was taking selfies for Otis. But it involved a tripod and a digital camera and a lot more shame as I set this up in front of people.
Yeah.
What's guy doing? He's taking a picture of himself in front of something. Nowadays you just do this, right? So it's because it's gotten easier to do all this stuff. People that wouldn't have done it otherwise are doing it, right? So there's usually kind of a bar that you have to pass to do anything in life, right? Drive, determination, random talent, all those things. Yeah. These days, you don't need that to create content, to create movies. I think AI is going to do the same thing with writing, where you don't have to have, the desire to do it. You desire for the outcome, right? That's what it is. It's the desire for the outcome. Right. The process is the most important thing, right? Again, the book is the outcome. I'm glad I have books. But the most important thing was the process to get in that book. The visiting, the meeting people, the interviews, all those things is much more valuable than the book. And we need to get to a place, I think, where the content is not the point. The point is again, it sounds cliche when I say the point is the experience.
But it is.
And again, getting out there and making a video is great. But getting out there and making a video is a great motivation to get out there, right? Otherwise, it is very, especially these days, it's so easy to stay on your couch and watch the entire world's media around you, right?
Right.
And so whatever it takes to get you out there is a good thing. But again, we get so wrapped up in like the platforms, right?
Yes.
I always joke that if there wasn't, if there's so many content creators, if there was no TikTok, they wouldn't be creating this content. Nobody's doing reaction videos by themselves, just for themselves, right?
Yeah,
but the writer who's not published is still writing. The musician doesn't have a contract is still making music. The artists are still arting. Content creators only content create when there's a platform that they can fill up, right? So I think that's, again, and it's kind of the problem with all things. Like social media is the problem with all things, right? And these days, it's the same thing with this kind of internet world. It's kind of taking away everything. Like in the back of the day, blogs were personal connections. Now they're parasocial relationships. Whatever the social media are, the parasocial relationships. We have that term now, which we didn't have back then. And so it's just gotten a lot more, a lot more shallow, unfortunately. But again, I'm still an old man who doesn't get everything. So I think maybe something cool is happening that I just don't quite see yet. But it is kind of like once everybody's doing it, I kind of don't want to do the thing anymore. So if everybody's doing this thing, it's done. Great. What else is there to do? So I think that's what it is. It's just social media has definitely interrupted the internet experience a lot, I think, in a way that back in the day it was a lot of fun. But like these days you have to be kind of on guard at all times, not just against false stuff, but against like just mind-numbing stuff and just like that. You have to be on guard on the internet in a way that you didn't have to be back in the day where it was an adventure. Every day on the internet was an adventure back then.
Yes, yeah.
That had applications in real life. Today it's more like you have to like guard yourself on how the internet can infiltrate your reality. I don't know. So it's changed for the better in a lot of ways. It's changed for the worse in a lot of ways. But who knows?
It's been quite the change.
It's been changed. At the very least, you can say it has definitely changed.
Yeah. You kind of were preaching to the choir there on all that stuff because I'm in total agreement there with you. It's a lot. Yeah, the whole concept of content makes me kind of cringe. It's like, and the fact that it's become such a part of the vernacular that it's like it's so soulless. It's just so soulless, like the idea of like content creation for me. And then like this idea of like you have to build a brand, you have to be a personal brand, and like look who's fucking talking. It's Binnall of America. I guess I was guilty of it before anybody. I just didn't ever think like I just couldn't come up with a more clever name. That's all it was. I wasn't like I'm going to be the guy. It was, but now it's like it's all brand building and sort of like you have to post this much times a day and you got to make sure you get the interaction. You gotta game the algorithms. It's like, this is exhausting. I don't want to do any of that shit. I just want to talk to people. Yeah.
My other career is marketing. And part of why I have this other life is because I don't want to market. Like I want to actually do the thing. And like, you're right. Like these days to do the thing is marketing. And it's just marketing as a marketer, I know this will sap the soul out of everything. That's what it's supposed to kind of do, so it's exciting in a lot of ways, but again, I don't know what the next phase is. I don't know what
it's interesting. It's fun to watch.
It's a cacophony. Unfortunately, it's a cacophony. It's all it is right now is the problem. There's no it's just really hard to cut through the noise to the value. It's kind of the problem of the internet today. Back in the day, everything was kind of valuable on the internet. Even the silly things were valuable. But today it's hard to cut through the cacophony to find the value.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, and I hope you'll come back on the show in the future, but I feel like we could talk about this whole aspect of it. Thanks for quite a while because we do love to smash the fourth wall here on the show. So what do you have coming up next? As we said, Welcome to the Ghost Show has just been released. That's the kids' book. And you have a whole bunch of other books, but we mostly talked tonight about cursed objects, the United States of Cryptids, called Following. Of course, the website is oddthingsi'veseen.com, Otis, as it's known.
And in January, my next book in that series of Cryptids, Cursed Objects comes out. It's called Don't Go There. And it's, 30 places around the world that have some kind of layered paranormal story to them, like the Bermuda Triangle and the Suicide Forest and those kinds of places. So that's the next quirk book in that series, kind of, for me.
All right. Well, we're getting you back on the show when that comes out. Sure, that sounds awesome.
My favorite topics to ever cover was these places.
Well, I can't thank you enough, JW. I really enjoyed this conversation. We're of the same mind on so many things. You're definitely you're a fellow paranormal traveler, and that I love so much. It's been so fun to talk to you about these places and stuff, especially the ones that I've had the chance to go to, and the ones that I haven't yet that I really now want to check out, thanks to the stuff that you've produced over the years. So, I mean, I can't thank you enough. You've done a service, I think, for, like you said earlier, you've boosted these places, and you've been boosting them for years, before some of these places became sort of hotspots, if you will, for social media and everything like that. So, I mean, you've done yeoman's work, as part of this whole community. And, I hope people recognize and appreciate that, because I sure do.
I appreciate that, man. I'm always happy to be another traveler, somebody who actually goes these places, so I can, compare experiences and know that I'm not alone.
There you go. And we can cut this out. Any speaking engagements or anything you want to plug for the fall or anything, or no?
It depends. Probably not. I mean, I have some September stuff, but I have no idea when this is coming out. So, all
right. Yeah, cut plugs. All right. I just had to put that in so I make sure All right, sounds good. With all that said, thank you so much for coming on the show, brother. We will definitely talk again in the future, and hopefully, given that we're both a couple of rowdy New Englanders, more like it.
a lot of assumptions there.
Yeah, I know. hopefully, our paths will cross at some point. In the not too distant future, either Exeter, or Whitehall, or some other Salem, someplace, where the weird percolates.
I think it will happen definitely now that we know about each other.